Okay.
Yeah. So we're good to go. So Joyce, tell us a bit about yourself. So like I might know a bit about you, but I think a majority of us sitting in on this conversation today might not have even met you before. So yes, the floor is yours. So Joyce, who is Joyce? I'll let you pronounce your
Who's
name.
Joyce? Okay, so my name is Joyce Imiegha. I'm from Edo State, actually. So I love to say that I like to help people. I like to help people and operations, or I like to help people become better versions of themselves. And in the last 10 years, I've mostly worked with managing people, managing projects, managing operations. Just I like to be in spaces where I can help things become better or help projects, become better. I help people achieve their goals and all of that. And in the last 10 years, I have managed people, and by people, I mean creatives, I mean musicians, makeup artists, models, content creators. I've managed projects, I've managed film projects, I've managed music projects, I've managed events and stuff like that. And I've recently also started operations management in like corporate organizations and all of that. So a lot of the things that I've done in the last decade has mostly revolved around management. I'm also I would say I'm also a creative because, yeah, I like to, I've delved into music at some point in my life. Filmmaking is also a passion that I have. Um, I love to create stuff. I've been an editorial consultant for a magazine, Tush magazine, for about 8 years now, and all of that stuff. So yeah, I like to just help people and projects and things, be better. I like to be in the process of creating and just molding stuff from one point to another. That's pretty much what my work is about right now.
I like the end, the right now, because yeah, I like the end of right now because I think probably there's a tendency for it to change.
Yep.
So I listened to your conversation with Peace. I think that was the conversation you had in is it 2016 or 2017. When you still had the conversation with
Yeah.
Peace, and it's kind of from then till now, there's a lot of things you said that you did then that you didn't say now. So which means that in the last, just like you said, in the last 10 years, you have um, switched up a lot of things that you are doing. And but what has not changed from what I can hear is the fact that you handled multiple projects, or you handled you sort of had multiple passions that you devoted your
Yeah.
energy into. I think that has not changed. So
Yeah.
if I were to start this conversation, hoping I have not started, I would ask, how did you, or how do you do it? How do you have multiple passions and you are able to? So the first question is that, do you give all of them equal level of attention and equal level of energy?
Okay, so first off, I think most of these, or majority of, or the core of my passion for so many things stems from being a very restless person. Growing up, I was very restless. It just felt like I had to always do something. It just didn't feel right when I wasn't doing anything. I remember when I mean, even like during holidays when I was in primary and secondary school, I always wanted to do something. If I'm not going for like computer lessons, I wanted to do something. And I just always wanted to. And luckily, when I was younger, I think at the age of 9 or 10, my dad got a personal computer in the house, and that kept me very busy. So if I'm not playing games, I'm learning to type, or I'm just typing out assignments that nobody sent me. And growing up, I just realized that it had become a part of me. when I got into the uni, I'll go for classes, I'll come back home and I'll be bored, literally have nothing to do. I remember that I started to draw. And then when I was bored with drawing, I wanted to start dancing. And next thing I was in music, and I had a full-fledged music career. I was going for shows, I was performing, I was recording songs. And then from then on, I realized that music wasn't going to work for me because it meant that I had to leave school because I had to be in Lagos. And at that time, I was in Delta State. And that was when I got into promotions because I said, oh, if I cannot do music, then I want to help people who do music. And then I went into PR. PR is something I forgot to mention. It happens when you do a lot. So I still do PR. And at every given point in my life, I just developed a passion for something. I'm also very curious. I want to know how these things work. Sometimes I see people do certain kind of work or have certain skills, and I just want to learn it. I want to acquire that skill just so I know how it works. Not because I have any plans for it or anything. And just maybe in the future, if somebody needs me to do it, I could do it for them. So for example, when I started music PR, I realized that just depending on paid media wasn't enough. We'd put the songs on blogs and all of that and yada, yada, and yada. But it wasn't enough. I thought that these artists could get more visibility and stuff. And so about 2-3 years into PR is when I met with Pisatimi, and I told her, I was like, Peace, I want to acquire digital marketing skills because I want to be able to promote artists' music properly and better than other people who do it right now. And that was how I started digital marketing, and also when I started working with the magazine, it was just traditional media, and we needed to move from traditional to digital, or also add the digital part of it. And, I knew there was a lot of marketing that was required. And so another reason why I added that skill. So for most parts of it, it's just been wanting to learn a skill so that I can probably offer it as an additional service, to my clients or, to people I work with and all of that stuff. So I cannot categorically say that I do all of these things at the same time. I would say that I do them, when they're required. So for example, you would not find me planning or actively planning for events or wanting to create events to do. But then if a client calls, or maybe a client that I've managed an event for before in the past or something, and they call and they say, hey, we have this event and we want you to handle it, I would do it. And that was why I got this skill because, then I used to do bookings for artists. And sometimes these people will say, okay, we don't want you to just book artists for us. We want you to handle the event, and that's when I learned these things. And, and that's just how my life has gone, so right now, actively, if I look at this week, what have I done? I've mostly done talent management, operations management, a bit of PR. I do PR a lot, reputation management. And so for example, this week, and then talent development, these are the things I've done this week. Next week, I could be doing something else. I could be, I don't know, maybe be a bricklayer next week if it requires, so if that's required of me. But I'm learning to create time for each of these things. But the truth is, the core of my passion for so many things is in operations. If I know that this thing that I'm doing requires this certain skill, I get it, and then I apply that skill where it's required. Same thing with production. So I work with Pisatimi. I manage Pisatimi, and then when we're shooting, her YouTube content, I become a talent manager and a producer. So I also produce the show. So it's just what is required of me. I'm like a chameleon, whatever is required of me, I just shape shift and I become that thing. So I don't necessarily allocate time and stuff to all of these things, but I just apply them where they're required.
All right.
Did I answer the second question?
Which is the second? What is the second question? First of all?
I got lost in the talk. Yeah.
No. It's totally fine. So one thing I fixed was the fact that for all of the things you do, they resonate or they revolve around a certain core, just like the planets revolve around the sun. So all of the things you do revolve around a certain core, I think, and which I think is pivotal. But a question I would want to ask is, were there any time where you had passions that were at both ends of the spectrum? You know, you had a passion that was at, okay, since I've used the planetary example, you had a passion that was Mercury, and then you had another passion that was Pluto. Come on, these are like two,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So were there times you had passions like that, and how did you go about?
Okay, so ideally, majority of the passions that I've developed, I've exercised, have mostly revolved around each other. Mostly in the entertainment industry and the tech industry. But right now, I'm at a place in my life where I've developed a passion that is just on another end. And for a long time, I struggled with it because it just seemed like a far stretch from every other thing that that I've done or I've known and all of that. And, I struggled with it. And that passion is psychology. For a long time, I tell people that I want to be a psychologist. I want to be a clinical psychologist. I want to help people. But then I can also see that it stems from managing people. I want to be able to manage people in that regard. So, maybe I'm not managing, operations or managing a talent, but I also want to manage people. I want to manage people's mental health and stuff like that. So that's where I am right now. I'm currently exploring options, on, going back to school to study psychology, and even do my PhD and just be a full blown psychologist, which is like really different, but something I'm excited to do. And I really, really cannot wait to do it. So that's currently where I'm at right now, wanting to just drop off some of these other passions that I have so I can accommodate psychology in my life. So that's currently where I'm at.
That's nice. I didn't actually see that coming. No, no, come on. I sincerely didn't see that coming, but then again, it's nice. Um, I was listening to you, and you mentioned that based on requirements, you have, in your own words, you have shifted into what was needed at that moment. Now, I was having a
Mhm.
conversation with a certain person, I think 2, 3 days ago, and he was he had a certain perspective that when we pick up so many things, or when we are doing so many things at the same time, um
Yeah.
we end up not being able to deliver 100% at each front. So let's imagine a scenario. Currently, okay, let's imagine a scenario where you are uh, needed to maybe produce a video, and
Okay.
normally it's gonna take the stretch of 1 week. But at the same time, you also have a certain requirement for maybe another client to promote something digitally.
Mm.
Sometimes there are gray areas where these things overlap and you're not able to be present, fully present in this one and fully present in the order. And for someone who handles like a ton of things, maybe you have like 5 projects on your hands or 4 projects on your hand, and so um, from the man's standpoint is that you are not able to deliver 100% at each front. So
Mm.
instead of trying to quote and unquote be a jack of all trade, master of none. You
Yeah.
should master one and give yourself fully to one, or let there be a primary thing that you are known for, and every other thing comes second. So I would like to just get, if you understand what I mean, I'd like to
Yeah.
just get your thought and perspective about that for someone who has consistently done multiple things at the same time.
Okay, so yeah, when people say, that it's important to master things, I totally agree. And a lot of times I wish that I can apply that in my life, but I think that, um, sometimes I jokingly say that multi-potentialism is like a curse, as much as you want to focus on one thing and maybe like, just master that one thing, sometimes you just get bored and you know that you cannot do one thing, right? So when it comes to delivering 100 on like different things, I used to get into a lot of trouble some years ago where, I'm taking this project, taking that, taking that, taking that. And, and because I have a streak of perfectionism in me, I like things to be perfect and all of that. I would give my all into everything, and I would often break down, for like a week or two. I would not be able to do anything. Then I would get back up and I would stretch and stretch and stretch and break down, and then at some point I hired people. I had about 3, 4, 5 people working with me, but then I'd still be involved in everything they were doing because I wanted to make sure everything they did, came out well and all of that. But it wasn't really working with me because, first, as much as it made me, I was so stressed. I was always stressed all the time, and I didn't have a life. My sisters would always tell me, "You're busy, we don't see you," and stuff like that. And I wasn't happy about it. So then I started to prioritize, right? So I was prioritizing based on different circumstances. There were some projects that I was very passionate about that I knew that I had to do at every point in time. And there were others that I had to prioritize, save for the money and stuff like that. So I started to cut down on things that I was doing. I started to outsource some of this work. For everything that I currently do, I know at least 2 people who do them that I can easily outsource projects to, and I could just supervise. So that's kind of how I've been managing. And I've also learned to say no. So many times people come to me and they want me to do stuff, and, I would fall in love with the project or fall in love with the talent or whatever it is, or a startup, and I want to do it. But now I'm learning to take time to like step back, think about it, look at it in the long run. How is this going to affect my life right now? How long is this thing going to take? How involved do I have to be? And then, I make decisions to say no, and say yes and stuff like that. And even right now, I'm currently cutting down on the things I do. I'm kind of on the way to quitting artist management. So I am no longer managing, the talent development and day-to-day affairs of musicians because of how time consuming it is. And just like you said, imagine the times when I have like a pitch deck to create, because I'm working in operations for a startup, and then at the same time I have to be on a music video set with one of the artists I manage. And most times you see me on set, I'm trying to coordinate things, and my laptop is on my lap because I'm also working on the pitch deck, and I'm talking to people, and I'm making phone calls and all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, the pitch deck would be ready, the music video would be great, but then I'll be feeling depleted and stuff like that. And and sometimes things can just go wrong, and everything would go wrong because I'm not giving everything 100. So I'm learning to cut down, learning to prioritize. I'm now focused on things that I think are much more important for me, So I'm thinking more of me and less of people, because the truth is, I believe that if I don't do it for them, they would find somebody, to do it as well. So I'm thinking more of myself now. And this is where I'm currently at. We're supposed to have this conversation last month, and I told you, I was like, Tolu, I'm currently a mess. I need to figure out my life, just give me 1 month. And funny enough, this conversation was kind of like the timer. I told myself, I was like, if I'm going to do this conversation with Tolu in October, I need to figure things out by October. And so I took out time to think. It was draining. There were days where I was crying because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to focus on. I wanted to focus on something or a few things, and all of that. But I understand the importance of mastering something. And I think this is where psychology comes in. Psychology and entrepreneurship, those 2 things, I want to be really good at them, because it is from these things that I know I can be other things, and I can manage other things. I see how my therapist, there are times when I'm stressed and I talk to my therapist and she just tells me things to do, and I'm like, wow, this is magical. So I want to understand how the mind works and, how to take care of the mind and stuff like that. So this is where I'm at, wanting to master just a few core things, and all of these little things that I've been doing, I want to give other people the opportunity to do it. Like for access management right now, I have hired managers to take over my role. I'm currently in transition stages, and I can see that they're doing the job well, and so I'm going to apply this to like many other things that I do, and just give them out to other people, so I can now focus on mastering 1 to maybe 3 maximum things.
All right. So if I hear you correctly, one, it dates back to one, being self-aware and knowing when you need to not really turn the switch off, but give room for other people to be able to do the things that you do so well, even though they are a lot. So that's
Yep.
one, being self-aware and coming to a consciousness of who you are. And then,
Mm,
if I hear you correctly again, two is that you should find a major that sort of is like an umbrella over every other thing that is a minor. So if you're doing this major, you're still going to achieve fulfillment. You're still going to achieve fulfillment, and every other thing that comes under becomes something you can maybe outsource or something you
yep.
can do part-time. Probably you can push it and say, hey, I do not have the bandwidth for this now. Let's do this another
Mm,
time. Or if you can wait this long, if you can't wait this
yeah.
long, I have this person that I think
I
would be a perfect
recommend.
fit for
Yeah.
the job. So being self-aware, finding a major, and also prioritizing. I think those are like the three things you mentioned in
Yeah.
the bulk of what you said.
Yes.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So we're just going to take a very, very short break. Very short break. I want to give room for anybody that have a question before I continue my questions. So does anyone have a question, an opinion? Yeah, there's my own water. That's not like this. Yeah, short break. Does anyone have a question? The two Rukewes, and then Ayodeji, Olajide, Murphy. Does anyone have a question?
I don't
We see
think
that
any.
people understood everything so far, and nobody has a question.
It's possible. We have smart people in this room.
Huh. Okay, well, right. So since nobody have a question, or no one has, since nobody get question, yeah.
It's
So let's just push forward. Um, so how do you recognize? I know I've said that. Oh, be self-aware. Have a major and prioritize. But how do you recognize that? It's time to transition, or what are like the pointers? What are the pointers? What are the signals you see or you sense as a person that you know that, hey, Joyce, it's time to move on from this? Because if I want to assume that you no longer actively draw, you no longer maybe you, I don't know if you still actively write, but how did you know that it's time to transition from this particular skill? Not totally drop it. Um, because what you've gathered, the experience you've gathered at this point would still come in handy
right.
as you advance or as you grow. So how do you recognize that it's time to leave where you are?
So I think majority of these pointers could be very personal, honestly. Personal in the sense that it could be personal to like your personal goals, your ambitions, and stuff like that, right? So like in the last 10 years, I told myself when I had just turned 20, I told myself that the next 10 years, I'm going to acquire as many skills as possible. I'm going to do a lot of things. I'm going to work. I'm going to have fun. I'm just going to be, right? And that was what happened, and I started with music. I did this, I did that. I've done so many things, and it's been fun, right? But then I have gotten to the beginning of another decade, and this decade it's very transformative for me. And in this decade, I'm looking for stability and stuff like that. So then I ask myself, what do I need to do to be stable, right? I don't want to be running from one film set to another or doing this and that. I want to be much more stable. I have academic pursuits that I'd like to focus on. I think in this decade, so I'd love to start a family and stuff like that. And I don't want to be that person that's just always on the move and all of that. So these are the things that have like informed this next stage, of my life. But then I also think that generally, you need to look at your productivity, your output, right? You need to ask yourself questions, because say if you do no mean say you supposed to do type of situation. Just because you're like very talented and all of that doesn't mean that you have to apply all of these things at the same time. So I believe that everybody kind of has like like career goals, personal goals, and stuff like that. And I think that these goals are kind of what informs this decision, right? So what your career goals are, what would you like to be doing in the next 5 years, what are you required, what's required of you to achieve that, right? So say for example, you want to be one of the most sought after UI UX designer, right? But then right now you make music, you shoot videos, you do graphic design, you do this, do that, do that. If you want to be the most sought after graphic designer in 5 years, then that means you need to focus on design, right? You need to do more designs. You probably need to work with a few companies or products and stuff, and then you need to grow. So your personal goals, your career goals should inform these things. And then you know that at this point, if I'm going to have to focus on design, then it means I have to drop some of these things, right? And just focus. And productivity as well. You could be capable of doing all of these things, but then how productive would you be? What's the output going to be like? Are you going to be giving all of your time to this thing? Would the outcome of this thing be as great as it would be if you just focus and stuff like that? So some of these things are like some of like the general pointers, but personally, it's just like, man, I don't come this life to suffer. I love to help people, but I kind of want to be chilled now, so I want to do things that my heart is much more drawn to. Yeah, I think a lot of things I do, I'm always deeply in love with these things, but I just want something much more stable, something that can have, a lot of impact. I think that a lot of things I do, a lot of people can do them and can help and stuff like that. So I want to just move on to, you know, other things that I can have like greater impact in.
I think that makes sense. That really makes sense. So, before I proceed, happy birthday in advance. So I know next week is your birthday. Next week,
I'll
how many
send you
days
my
away?
wish list.
They used to send wish list. Okay, well, send it. I will. There's no. Yeah.
I just want gifts this year. That's just my heart desire. I don't want the party. I don't want to travel. I just want gifts. I just want to see all these things and be like, oh my God, people.
Aww.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It should happen. I'll pray. I'll pray on your wish list.
Thank you.
Yeah. So as you were speaking, it just you reminded me of a conversation I had. I think yesterday or day before yesterday. With someone that it's someone I randomly met who happens to know AG Baby. And it was telling me that, oh, yeah, oh, one thing, that AG Baby actually, hope everybody knows who AG Baby is. Um, that AG Baby actually started off as like a visual artist, and he also had passion for music before he went on to do music and all of that stuff. And coincidentally, I think a few hours before today's conversation, I was scrolling through Instagram and I actually saw Adekunle Gold's ad with Adobe. Adobe I do praises to those people. And and he was explaining how that, just like you said, at the point he was very, very passionate about being a visual artist and all of that stuff. And he also wanted to do music. And, at the point he just decided that, well, is I really, really, really want to do music. So he just diverted all of his focus on doing music and applied his visual artistry skills to his music. And this person was like telling me that, hey, do you know I literally go design most of his album covers? And I'm like, wow, really?
Whose album
But
cover?
adequately good. AG.
He designed his own album cover.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
nice.
designed his own album cover. Yeah, this was exactly my reaction. So I was like, wow, oh nice.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, so
fully agree
it's
with that.
it's um it's part-time. Like if I just want to summarize a bit what you said. It's part-time defining what your focus should be and putting all your resources, so all your skills, all of the diverse passions that you have. It's part-time finding what exactly you want to, what target, what goal you want to hit, and put all of them. So all of them should not be working separately towards different endpoints. They should be working together towards a certain endpoint. So if money is the focus, if money is the goal, then know that all of the passions you are on and all of the skills you're picking up would would um would converge at the point where you make a certain amount of money. And so I think that's like that if I was going to crown this conversation, um it's that part time, from what you said, find a goal, find a focus, and channel all of your resources, all of your passions should be driving towards that that focus. So it's not the time to uh, have multiple passions and pick up multiple skills. It's that all of them should be in sync, working together towards the goal you set part time.
Yeah,
There's another question
yeah.
that I
I
have, but I
can give
think I
two
have the
examples.
answer to the question. All right, yeah,
Okay. So, for
yeah,
example, in artist management, so I remember I mentioned that I had a brief stint in music for about 2 years, and so
yeah,
I kind of like have had that experience. So in managing artists and all of that, so like even when we're in the studio recording songs, I understand the process, right? And even sometimes when they're like complaining or saying stuff, I'm not talking, and when I'm trying to like fix that for them, majority of times I'm not coming from a place of not being informed. I understand how music is made, I understand what softwares and all of that. I have the experience, and even when they're writing, sometimes I can just contribute to it, and they're like, cool, so you can rap, and I'm like, you don't know me. And even when the music is done, the music production process is done, when we move on to like promotion strategy and all of that, my experience in PR, I bring that into it and all of that. So even if I'm not the one executing, I'm part of the plan. So even if the person executing comes and is giving us BS, I'm like, I know this thing, right? This is how I think we could do it and all of that stuff. And then when it comes to like even like events and stuff like that, I have experience with that. I've done a lot of bookings and tours for a lot of artists. So, I know how to then work with my artists and how to prepare them and stuff like that. And even in entrepreneurship and stuff like that, in typically building a product or running a company, even from like, I think the one skill I've not had now is programming, which I've been considering. I'm like, are you sure I'm not going to start learning programming on the side? Even with like UI UX design, I've had experience in graphic design. I was a graphic designer for about 2 or 3 years. So even in designing the product, I can tell you, oh, this font doesn't work, or I can give like design feedback, coming from an informed place. I have experience with managing people. So there's HR, I can manage people, I can manage operations, and stuff like that. I've run businesses on my own. I end to end, I know what it's like. So it's like all of these skills that I've had, they're not just like out there in the wind. majority of the time they're all coming together to work towards a certain goal and stuff like that. So yes, what you say is very important. It's important to, in as much as you have the skills and all of that, look at them and see how they align, how they align together, to help you in the long run or in whatever you're trying to achieve.
I think that's if I was gonna end here, that was the perfect end. That was the perfect. So thank you so much, Joyce. I Kush is sweeter in my mouth, but yeah.
Please
So
call me
yeah.
Kush.
Thank God. I have become one of the elite, one of the people that love you. Oh God, yes, yes. But are you going to tell us why you get pushed or into the state?
Well, yeah, I would. So I've been bearing Kush for 15 years now. So that's why I tell people that Kush is my name, because it's been my name for so long. So I used to be a fan. Then I was in secondary school, and I think this was in 2006. Yeah, 2006. I used to listen to a lot of gospel music. I had this classmate that had this iPod that was filled with gospel music. So most times when I didn't have class or when I was just in the hostel, I would always listen to them. And this was how I discovered Kush, a group, a gospel music group or band. So there were four people. We had T.Y. Bello. You know T.Y. Bello, right? Then there was
Yeah.
Lara George, who's also a musician. There was MM, who's now a talent manager. And then there was a guy that wasn't really a major part of the group. So there were four of them. And I used to listen to their songs. They were the ones that did this let's live together. This popular song like that. And I really loved them. I'd always listen to them. And then in that year, I found out that, that the group had decided to go their separate ways to pursue individual music careers. And it really hurt me because I really liked them. And I think I was so invested in them that I wanted to hear more from them and see more of them. And so I decided to keep the name Kush. The meaning of Kush for them was kinetically ushering souls into heaven. Right, so it's like an acronym, kinetically ushering souls into heaven, and I just loved it. It just sounded cool, Kush. And then it wasn't just Kush; it was J Kush. So like Joyce and Kush, J Kush. But then over time, it evolved to Kush. So that's how I got the name.
I'm tempted to ask you your stage name when you were a musician, but let me just.
There was Kush, yeah, just so there was Kush, but there was a suffix. But I'm not telling you that. You can go and find out. There's information on the internet.
Really, really.
Mm.
All right.
Hmm.
So does anyone have a question for Joyce? It may not be completely tailored to today's conversation. But we have like 15 minutes before to the end of today's conversation. I've gotten my piece of what I wanted, the clarity I was looking for. So if you not get question, I beg Mona ask. So that I don't know. This thing is difficult. Yeah. So does anyone have a question? How do you take care of yourself? What are some of your self-care tips? Aha.
Oh my God. I was hoping this question would not come up because I've done a terrible job at taking care of myself in the past, but which is one of the reasons why, as much as it was a terrible thing, to the entire world, the pandemic really helped me to slow down. Because shortly before the pandemic, in fact, the beginning of 2020 was chaotic for me. I remember in February, I was in Abuja for Pato Rankin's concert. I was there for a week. I was part of the production process. When the event was done, I was exhausted, and then I decided to go somewhere else to like rest a bit. And on day 2 of my vacation, I got a call and they were like, you need to come back to Lagos. And I was like, why? And, They said, there's a film production, yada, yada. We want you to handle it. You need to come. And at the same time, somebody else was calling me for a training that I had to do. And I came back to Lagos and boom, got into the pre-production process. Boom, we started shooting. Boom, the pandemic hit and we had to halt everything. I remember having to make that painful decision, when we're like, we have to shut down this production and everybody needs to go home. And then the pandemic started and week 1, week 2, week 3, I was just resting. I was like, that's what life be. Jesus Christ. And that was how I just became aware of the fact that I wasn't really taking care of myself properly. If you had even seen me last year, gosh, I was not this fresh. Like I was always stressed, I realized how rest was important. And so, what are my self-care tips right now? One thing I would definitely say is I don't joke with my sleep. I have to get 7 hours sleep as much as I can every day, so much that if I get a 5 or 6 hours sleep, it would affect me. So one of the things I know I do is I make sure to sleep, at 11 p.m. I want to be in bed because at 6 I'm most likely up and going to the gym, exercising is another thing. I realized that when I actively exercise, when I go to the gym, when I'm actively working out, I feel well rested as well. My body is active. My body can take the work, and I'm not so stressed. Working out really helps as well. I try my best to eat properly. Not really 3 times a day, but that too takes care of me. For example, when I'm not actively working out, I find that I get exhausted and I feel very sleepy and I just want to sleep and stuff like that. Then what else? I'm learning to take breaks. For the first time in my life, sort of, I started to go on vacations this year. And now it's looking like, oh my God, vacations are the best things. Please fund my life so I can go on vacations because they actually help. Just taking a break from everything and then coming back, you start to see things differently. You're able to like just do things differently. So yeah, properly sleeping, working out, and taking breaks are things that has helped me recently, and these are things I want to actively do to take care of myself. And I love to watch movies. Gosh, watching movies is like one of the best things in the world. So much that I could be working and watching a movie. So that's one of the ways I take care of myself. It kind of relaxes me, and I get into the stories, and that just makes me feel good. So yeah, that would be the extra thing. Yeah.
Nice. So Rukewa is making a comment to you, and she said the meaning of push. I love it. And almost equation to
Thank
breathe.
you.
We all should love and life.
Breathe. Yeah. Yeah. And really, actually, literally, breathing is so important, right? Especially in cases where I feel overwhelmed or, anxiety is eating me up. I realized that breathing exercises were great. Most times I heard, and sometimes you just think it's one of those psychological flukes, but it actually helps. I breathe, like take like 5 to 10 deep quality breaths, or like when I wake up in the morning and I'm meditating, and you know how meditation emphasizes on breathing, and you breathe and it just changes everything. And yeah, that's really amazing. Another thing I would say, a self-care tip would be mental health care therapy. um, I find that most times when I'm overwhelmed and stressed and everything, when I talk to my therapist and I just explain to her everything that's going on, she just has the right things to say. She gives me tasks that when I do them, I just feel the difference. So that's another thing that's kind of like helps take care of me. Yeah, and breathing is so important. Breathing slash meditation, very important.
That's nice. Beautifully said. Adesoji Olajide, how can I navigate between being an education consultant and also wanting to lecture?
Being an education consultant, so I'm going to need a bit of context because I would like to understand what being an education consultant is, and but from what I can tell, they're both in the education sector. Um, I'm just wondering. I
For
would I
me,
would really love context, and I don't know
yeah.
if there's I don't know if you can provide context. Actually, that would help.
Adesoji, could you unmute and like give provide a bit of context to your question so that we can understand it? No, Soji.
Or if it's possible, I don't know, maybe you could send them my email or something and they can reach out to me and I could talk to them if they're not able to do this on here. But I'd like to get a bit of context to understand and possibly understand if they're like conflicting things or like the things that require like full-time attention and all, then I could be able to, you know, talk on that.
Okay, no problem. I'll reach out to her. I'll share your email with her. So it's so thank you so much. If there are no other questions, we have come to the glorious end of today's conversation.